Hey there, I got another question that was asked, and it's a good one. I'm pretty clear on what happens after I die. I'll be with Jesus. But what will it look like from my eyes, from my perspective? Will it be immediate? Will I be in darkness for a little while? Now, this was asked a few days after a sermon I preached on life after death. In case you missed it, you can watch it on YouTube. It's called The Great Reversal Part 5, Matter Matters. So we learned that we have our life right now. So if you're watching this, this is right now. And then we have our final destination, which is our resurrection, where we are with our new bodies living right here on earth with Jesus. But we also learned that in between, there is a middle state. You see, immediately after you die, we abandon our bodies and we become spirit only. And basically, our spirit awaits for the day of the resurrection. So the question that's being asked here is, what should we expect in terms of our experiences between phase 1 and phase 3? Or to put it more practically, if you were to die today and the resurrection were to happen in 1,000 years, nobody knows when it's going to be. Are we waiting in darkness for the 1,000 years, or would it feel immediate? Okay, so before I answer this question, I want to talk to you about the ambiguity of Scripture. See, when it comes to things about Jesus, it's pretty clear, okay? But the more we move away from the main point of the Bible, things get a little less clear. And when things are less clear, there's theories that Christian scholars come up with. So when it comes to the topic of what we experience right after we die, the Bible is not too clear on that. I mean, there's a few hints scattered around the Bible, and because of that, the Christians have come up with 3 theories. Now, I've labeled each of these theories with my own terminologies. I'm not really sure what the official labels are, but here we go. The first theory is called soul sleep. Sometimes in the Bible, when people die, Jesus and Paul, they use the word sleeping. Now, scholars all agree that this is meant to be taken metaphorically, but there's a debate on how far you could take this metaphor. So is Jesus talking about the rest we get once we die? Or is he talking about the temporary nature of death? In the 4th chapter of 1 Thessalonians, Paul talks about those who have fallen asleep, and he implies that there's a gap between death and the day of resurrection. Now, this theory points to the idea that we are unconscious after we die. Now, just like real sleep, a span of time between the time you fall asleep and the time that you wake up feels different from a sleeper's perspective as opposed to the actual time that's passed. So, for example, if you slept for 10 hours, for you, it might feel like 10 minutes. Likewise, from the day that you die, 1,000 years could have passed, but to us, it may feel like a few minutes. But the point of this theory is that from the day that you die and the day that you're resurrected, there is an undisclosed amount of time, and that we're not doing anything during that time except sleeping. All right, the second theory I like to call active spirit. In the first theory, Paul and Jesus use the word sleep, which implies that you're uninvolved with whatever is happening after you die. But the authors of Hebrew and Revelation, they both talk about the dead actually doing things. Now, this theory suggests that after you die and your spirit leaves your body, that you'll be watching over people with Jesus, cheering them on. The author of Hebrews chapter 12 uses the term cloud of witnesses. If you heard of Christians talking about praying to the deceased loved ones, they're probably coming from this tradition. So the distinguishing point here is that the people who die are actually actively involved, whereas in soul sleep, the first theory, they're basically knocked out. They're not doing anything. And finally, the third theory I like to call immediate resurrection. This theory points to the idea that time stops for anybody who dies. So people who died, let's just say 2,000 years ago, and people who died about 2 minutes ago will experience the resurrection immediately after they die. And so from your perspective, immediately after you die, you'll open your eyes and you're in the new earth with your parents and with your kids and your grandkids and your great-great-grandmother and whoever else from any point in history. And this is because no time has elapsed for those people who have died. Now, this theory comes from 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul is addressing the idea of what would happen to people who are actually alive when the resurrection happens. He says for them, it'll be like an instant. You're watching TV or walking down the street, and the next thing you know, you have a new body and you're on the new earth in the new creation. So some Christians started postulating, well, if that's true for the people who are alive at the time of the resurrection, then maybe it could be also true for the people who are dead. So this theory is similar to the first theory, except you're not sleeping. There's no time that passes because time is now gone. I know this stuff could get really confusing, but these are the 3 main views of what you will experience after you die. And I don't want to give you any definitive answers because the Bible doesn't seem to be definitive on this topic. And I'm sorry if this raised more questions than answers, but to me, that's part of the fun. God left some things ambiguous so that we could be surprised when it actually happens. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me and I'll get back to you, or we'll make another video.